Good morning. Well, unless of course you're on East Coast, and I would say good afternoon, but welcome to your next Menopause Morning chat here with me live. This happens every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon Eastern time. And it's where I have the opportunity to share things that are important for you. And today is a very important subject because when you think about menopause symptoms, number one, recognize and if you've seen my shows before, you understand this stat, but it's very important. About 2 million women enter menopause every year. And since you're watching this, you're likely one of those. And out of those 2 million women in the US that enter menopause, about 15%, they don't really have symptoms short of the only two true symptoms of menopause, which is you no longer have a monthly cycle and you can't conceive anymore. All right. So if you're fortunate enough to be a part of the 15%, you really don't need this video today. Yet, for most women, perhaps you're part of the 85%. So that means you could be dealing with maybe mild symptoms of menopause, or maybe moderate symptoms of menopause, or maybe even significant symptoms of menopause. But the one thing I really want to bring up today is it's more than just what's going on with the potential of weight gain, hot flashes, mood swings, poor sleep, brain fog, and that list goes on. It's also the recognition that this, if you are having what you are referring to as menopause symptoms, there's a much deeper issue that is beyond just your body transitioning from childbearing years into perimenopause and menopause and or postmenopausal. And the big thing with this is that if you are a part of the 85% and you're having symptoms, whether they be mild symptoms, moderate, or significant symptoms, it's really tied into this whole system here. Okay. So if you are a part of the 85%, what I want you to recognize is that the reason why you're symptomatic is because your system of hormonal balance has been already jacked up long before you probably entered perimenopause. Yeah, and it's something you've heard me talk. If you've been watching this every week, you've heard me talk about this so much. There's so many different triggers that can actually cause your hormonal system to be out of balance. And when it is, the problem is that your body, which your body has already been created to have the ability to transition from childbearing years into perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopausal, and still maintain perfect hormone balance. Let's recognize that if when you're making this transition and you're not no longer having a monthly cycle and you can't conceive, you don't need the same production of estrogens and progesterones that you had in childbearing years, and which is why in childbearing years about 2/3 of your hormone production, specifically the progesterone and the estrogens, that occurs in your ovaries. And most of the other third, even in childbearing years, will occur in your adrenal glands. So what happens is when you make the transition again from childbearing years into perimenopause, what happens is your ovaries stop their usual production of estrogen and progesterone, and your adrenal glands, as long as they're healthy, as long as the whole of your hormonal system is still working properly, which if you're part of the 85%, it is not. Well, then the big challenge there is that in essence, your body doesn't have the ability to make that transition, right? Because your adrenal glands, your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and your adrenal glands, how they work collectively, just can't do its job, right? And thankfully, this is something you could recognize and something you can work on supporting naturally to get back into a just what is your God-given ability to maintain perfect hormone balance as you transition through all of this. Now here's the big issue, though. Now, when I'm talking about this, you being symptomatic, again, whether they be mild symptoms, moderate symptoms, or significant symptoms, this system that we're looking at right here is really the bigger issue. And also is what's triggering this. Now, what I want to help you recognize, though, because today I want to talk about how if you have menopause symptoms, and if this system right here, which is tied into how your brain, your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals all work collectively together, if that's not working, it provides issues for you. It leads to symptoms that are far beyond what you think are really menopause symptoms. And the one I want to talk about today is tied into, when we're looking at this slide, see in the very middle where it says metabolism and fat and protein. Now, that's the big thing that I want to help you understand today, because when you have menopause symptoms and the entirety of your system is not working, it affects every single one of these areas in your body. Now, today we're going to put our focus on the metabolism of fat and protein. So we're going to talk about how this is tied into protein turnover, weight and fat distribution, and then also your mucosal surface integrity. Now, I'm gonna put the biggest focus on the protein turnover, but I also want you to understand that this particular system in your body with the metabolism of fat and protein, it is tied into number one, weight and fat distribution. So this is whether you need to lose or gain weight. Now, I do recognize that most women, when you enter menopause, you're gaining weight, so you're looking to lose weight, and it might seem impossible for you right now. And I could say, with literally, I've been working with women with menopause and hormones, heck, for how many years now? 21 and a half, almost 21 and a half years. And while most are looking to lose weight, there are some who have very unhealthy low weight and they can't put on weight. Yeah, and also where it says mucosal surface integrity, what I want you to understand that means is that is the interior lining of your gut. Well, and actually it's more than your gut. It's inside of your sinuses, your throat, your esophagus, your entire gastrointestinal lining, and the lining of your vagina, because this mucosal surface is really anywhere where your body is easily exposed to the outsider environment. So it is really your basically the Marines of the immune system. It's your first layer of defensive immunity. Yeah. So this is also within the interior of your respiratory system. Yeah. So that's obviously very important. And my biggest focus today is going to be on your protein turnover, because this is what I want you to really understand for yourself. And again, this is for the 85% of the women, which is probably you if you're watching this, that are symptomatic. And again, it doesn't matter if your symptoms are mild or moderate or severe. There's still a potential when your HPA axis, and again, that is your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal axis. When that's not working, guess what? You're not enjoying proper protein turnover. And why this is such a big problem is, and I'll even give a little story. Like, it's very common. I see so many people nowadays, so many women come into my office, and they're told and let's say they're working out with somebody with fitness. So they have a trainer, and they want to help. They want to help you build muscle mass, and you've been working out for some time, and while you've been consistent with going to the gym and working with your trainer and eating well and doing all the right things you need to do, you're still not getting the gains that you're looking for in the gym. You're still not, really getting that overall muscular tone that you're really looking for. You're not getting that lean body you're looking for. You're probably still not even losing the weight that you're looking to lose. And then what does your fitness instructor tell you to do? He said, well, increase your protein. Because you should be building muscle. And if you're not building muscle, you just don't have enough protein. And I have actually I've had women who've come into my office and said, well, and this might be a woman who weighs all of 125 pounds, and their trainer is telling them to eat 150 grams of protein a day, which is absolutely ridiculous. Because it's, number one, I mean, not much protein. You're going to put a lot of stress on your kidneys, and also, too much protein at one sitting is also carcinogenic and can be cancer causing. And on top of that, the problem usually isn't that you're not getting enough protein. Now, while that could be the case if you're only eating like 15, 20 grams of protein a day, or if you're a plant-based vegan and you're not really diligent with getting all of the proper plant-based foods and getting all your essential amino acids. But the reality is most women are getting enough protein, but they're not utilizing the protein properly. That's the key. So if you think about this, if your trainer tells you, well, you'd get better muscle gains if you added more protein, but if your body can't use the protein in the first place, what is giving you more protein really going to do? It's not going to fix the problem. And why protein turnover is so important is, and let me break this down a little bit more technical for you, is, when you consume a protein, so let's just use an egg as an example. Yeah, so an egg is one of the best sources of all your essential amino acids. Now, an egg has over 20 amino acids. We're just going to call it 20 to make it a nice even number. So let's just say that you eat an egg and you have proper protein turnover and you have proper breakdown of that egg in your digestive system. That egg will break down into, if it's 20 amino acids, it would break down into 20 single amino acids. See, and then those 20 amino acids, that's what your body uses as building blocks of life. That's what your body uses to maintain and repair your body on a regular daily basis. And on top of that, those single amino acids, they're essential for your body's production of neurotransmitters. Now, there's over 100 neurotransmitters in your body, and there are four that are primary that you have to have in balance to feel well, to feel happy, to have energy. And you're looking at serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, and also um, I'm drawing a blank on the last one, but it'll come to me. So you've got these four amino acids that you need on a regular basis. Oh, the other one is GABA. Yeah, but here's the big thing with this though, is those amino acids are essential for really most of what's going on in your body. Now, of course, there are other amino acids I mentioned, there are over 100, but those four are the primary that need to be in balance. Well, guess what? If you don't have proper protein turnover, if you don't have proper breakdown of your proteins into single amino acids, you're not manufacturing the neurotransmitters that you really need for your body. You know, we think about things like GABA, which is so important because GABA helps you be in a relaxed state. So think about this. If you think of your daily life, are you kind of is your brain a little stressed out on a regular basis? Do you feel like your body is stressed out? Is there a lot of mental emotional stress? And as a woman, there probably is. You've got a tough job in life as compared to men. Just think of your life. The last 30 years before menopause, you probably spent taking care of your children, your significant other, your home, maybe involved in your church community. Oh, and work a full-time job too, right? So there's typically a lot of stress for women on a consistent basis. Now from that perspective, you need adequate amounts of GABA. So if you don't have the protein turnover, you don't have the GABA. And that is that rest and digest side of your nervous system. That's the parasympathetic nervous system. The serotonin, which is essential for you, number one, to be able to get into a proper sleep cycle. And serotonin is really recognized as something that plays a significant role in happiness. It is actually nicknamed the happy neurotransmitter. So if it's hard to reach levels of feeling happy on a consistent basis, it could just be that you don't have the protein turnover that you're looking for. You're not breaking down the protein into single amino acids. You're not getting the serotonin, and then you're not feeling happy. Right. And then it's easier to blame the external circumstances, but very often it's just because of what's going on internally within us, because we all have the ability to be happy regardless of what goes on. All right, and really with the acetylcholine, which plays a big role in what's going on with your overall brain health, and then we think of the dopamine, which is going to be tied into your overall vitality, your energy, but all of these are tied into that fat, that protein turnover, that metabolism of a fat and protein. So and this is a problem when your system isn't working properly. So when that HPA axis that I talked about, remember that is your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal axis, they're not working. Well, that's going to have a negative impact on protein turnover, weight and fat distribution, and the mucosal surface integrity. And then now what does that mean for you? Means you can't repair and maintain your body. Yeah, and let's think about this. It really kind of puts you in that hamster wheel. Imagine a hamster wheel and a hamster running in that wheel. And the faster the hamster runs, the faster the wheel turns. But you know what? The hamster isn't getting anywhere, and nothing positive is happening from that. All right. So that could be your life right now. And do you feel like you're running in a hamster wheel? Do you feel like you're doing so many things on a regular basis and it's just not working for you? If we go back to the gym, maybe you're not making the gains in the gym. Maybe you're not losing the weight that you're looking for. Maybe you do feel stressed out all the time, and no matter what, and you might even think, in your life, maybe the stress that you're feeling right now, if you had that same level of stress maybe 5 years ago, you just kind of brush that off your sleeve like, oh, well, that's all that's going on, no big deal. But that same amount of stress that was no big deal 5 years ago might push you over the edge today. And that's where it kind of, it's just, I'll just say it's upsetting to me when I hear men say things like, oh, you're just, you're just moody because you're in menopause. No, there's a significant, if you feel like you're moody, it's just that it's this pathway we're talking about here. You don't have the protein turnover. You don't have those four primary neurotransmitters. You can't be happy. You're probably not sleeping well, which is how your body is when your body does most of its maintenance and repair. You don't have the GABA to feel relaxed. And on top of that, you don't have the dopamine to help with vitality and energy. So these things are going on. And then you'll have a man be like, oh, well, yeah, she's just menopausal. Well, that's just, that's a bunch of crap. Yes, you could have symptoms of menopause, but it's an underlying really functional imbalance that's going on that makes it next to impossible for you sometimes to be in the right place mentally and emotionally. And if people would understand that instead of like making you the bad person for that, it would be a lot easier because that's what I do in my practice all the time. Like every day I'm helping women understand that basically it's not menopause that's the issue for you. It's the simple fact that you entered menopause in a state where your brain, your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and your adrenals just aren't working collectively together. You don't have the ability to just make that transition because once you go from childbearing years into perimenopause and your ovaries slow the production of estrogen and progesterone that you're used to, that should be picked up very easily without symptoms. Well, short of you don't stop having a monthly cycle and you can't conceive, which I will say, working with women for so long, usually by the time you reach the years of about 50, you're usually pretty happy about that. But it's the other symptoms that you can avoid. And it's also the recognition if you're again dealing with symptoms of what you feel is menopause. So if you feel like you're dealing with weight gain, mood swings, hot flashes, sleeplessness, fatigue, brain fog, and that list goes on. It's more than just that of what's going on. Because it's really tied into, and today our focus was on your metabolism of fats and protein. But if you saw that one, you just saw that slide just a few moments ago, that's everything that's being affected. So that's far more than just what you think of as menopause symptoms. And the kicker here is that it's typically not being addressed in that way. You see, typically when you enter into menopause and you have menopause symptoms, all you're really being told is that you need to take progesterone and estrogen, maybe sometimes testosterone. Because and I will make a little note on this, the testosterone, that's produced in your adrenals even in childbearing years, because obviously you have ovaries to produce progesterone and estrogen, and men have testes to produce testosterone. So that's why as a woman, you will produce your testosterone in the adrenals, and men, as like myself, I will produce the progesterone and the estrogen in my adrenals. So our bodies are all like created perfectly, but the problem is what's going on in our lifestyle. The problem is what's tied into the triggers, and then all of this leaves you in a place where, again, you're probably not sleeping well. It's harder to find your happiness. It's harder to feel peace and calm within your brain and your body. It's harder to have the energy to do what you need to do in your day. And it's harder for your brain to function properly. But those are not symptoms of menopause. I want you to know that. Those are symptoms of an HPA axis that is just worn out. It's lacking vitality. And the good news is you can understand what that is. There's tests that you could do to really recognize that. In my practice, I always use a 24-hour urine collection. It's from a company called Meridian Valley Labs, and it's called the Plus Hormone Profile number 4080, where we literally look at over 30 different hormones. We look at how your kidneys are affecting your hormonal system. We look at how 2 different levels of your liver is affecting your hormonal system and estrogen metabolism specifically. We're looking at chronic disease risk factors. We're looking at inflammatory conditions. We look at everything that's causing your problem so you can work on supporting the system and overcoming the problem. And then the cool thing is if you're a part of the 85%, which if you are, you're you're probably still watching this. If you're part of the 15%, you probably, clicked away from this at about a minute because I told you this video isn't for you. This is for women who are suffering with some level of symptoms of menopause. So if you are that, well, then we know that your HPA axis isn't working well. And then all of this is really affecting you. And when you can look at everything collectively with the correct testing and really look at not just hormones in a snippet of your day, like when you would look at it with a blood test, when you look at the urine test over 24 hours, you're getting a significant recognition of where your hormones are through a whole 24-hour period. You can help support that. And I can help you understand also what are the potential underlying triggers as to why you're in this place in the first place. Yeah. So then and what I'd like you to do is based on what I'm saying, either if you have a pen and paper in front of you, you can write this down or you can just think of this. So when I was talking about the significant symptoms of when you have poor protein turnover. So remember that is poor sleep, tougher time feeling happy on a consistent basis, too much feelings of stress on a regular basis, hard to regulate your mood because of all the stress you're feeling, the low energy and low vitality, and then that lack of brain function, that brain and cognitive health. Maybe it might be brain fog for you, or just you might recognize that, hey, I just have lost the ability to remember things. I walk in a room and don't know why I walked in there. Or I put my keys down. I have no idea where those are. You get out of the store and you can't remember where the heck you parked your car. So what I want you to think about is of those symptoms, what is it that you're dealing with right now? And how many of those symptoms do you have? Right? Because the good news is you don't have to live with those. That's the cool thing. Yeah, because it's because it's really it really is up to you. Because it's what if you just do nothing? What if you just stay on the path that you're on? Well, unfortunately, if you stay on the path you're on and you don't address what's going on with your brain, your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and your adrenals, everything just continually gets worse over time. So whatever you're suffering with today, you'll likely be suffering with more tomorrow. Or what if you only take estrogen and progesterone? Well, that might help some of your symptoms, but it's still not fixing the problem. It's still not fixing your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals. So even though you might have some of what you refer to as menopause symptoms are improving, well, there could still be significant issues that are kind of brewing underneath, tied into that whole slide that I showed you a bit ago. Or what if you do something different? What if you do what I refer to as new menopause? Because to me, the new menopause is really understanding what's going on with your system, understanding what's going on with your hormones, understanding what your different triggers are, really following something to help support your natural hormone function, get that HPA axis back into balance, remove the triggers, and you know what? Turn back the clock and feel young again. Like, how cool does that sound? Like, you have that ability as well. So I wanted to really bring this up today because I wanted you to understand how the HPA axis affects really the whole of your body, with today's focus on really protein turnover and how that really has a negative impact on your body's ability to maintain and repair itself, as well as your body's ability to manufacture neurotransmitters to keep you functioning and living at a high level. So these, and just if you're new to viewing this is something I do every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. They typically last anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. I always do them live. So if you wanted to ask a question live, you have that ability to do so. And if you're watching the replay and you have a question or a comment, please just put that in the comment section below and I will address that personally. And I also have I do email all of the women who have committed to really benefiting from the Menopause Morning chats that I have here every Tuesday morning. And so below in the comments, I will put a link to where you can join that list, so you can actually usually on Monday night or Tuesday morning, I email over a reminder for the Menopause Morning coming up and the subject line of that, so you can actually definitely jump on the things that have a high level of interest for you. But really every single one of these is going to be very beneficial for you. So when you click on that and become a part of the Menopause Morning list to get those notifications, you'll also get a free copy of my book. It's called Fat, Fatigued, and Frustrated, which is an action step guide for all of your fundamentals, which is one of the first steps you need to really focus on in your path to overcoming what's going on with menopause. And because I've had some other people just over the last couple weeks asking about the testing. I will also put a link to the testing that I use, that Meridian Valley Labs, the Plus Hormone Profile 4080. I'll put that below in the comments as well. Because if you're the person who does want to do something different, I want you to have that option to go in that direction right away. So have a great rest of your day. I hope you've enjoyed this information and it's kind of opened your eyes to some things that are potentially going on in your body. And I look forward to connecting with you next Tuesday as well, and all the Tuesdays after that. Have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.